The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Trusting Up the Arc, being offered as part of the ASAP Post-Conference webinar series that will be held the second Wednesday of each month through April of 2016. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a couple housekeeping items related to today's webinar. First, you will notice a Zoom viewer button in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. You can use this button to adjust the size of your webinar screen. Secondly, in the control panel located on the upper right-hand side of your screen, you will see the word Questions listed. You can use the plus and minus button to open or close this box. If you have a question for Kathleen, you can enter it here. Time permitting, any questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. And now, I am pleased to introduce our presenter for today's webinar, Kathleen Bush of the Baby Fold. Kathleen has over 21 years of experience working as a counselor and therapist with children and adults with attachment and trauma-related issues and disorders. In her current position as Clinical Services Manager of the Baby Fold's Adoption, Preservation, and Foster Care Therapy Program, she spends much of her time training therapists to become capable healers of attachment and trauma issues. She has received formal training in a variety of therapeutic modalities, including TheraPlay, ARC, she's certified in EMDR, and is a TBRI educator. She regularly provides trainings for therapists, child welfare professionals, foster parents, and adoptive parents on those modalities. Kathleen, thank you for taking the time to share with us today. Welcome.
Thanks, Nicole. Hi, everybody. Thanks for letting me share my passion with you today. Been really excited about doing this webinar because my favorite thing to talk about is attachment and trauma treatment and working with therapists and families to help them figure it out. And just to share with you a little bit about myself and why I'm so passionate about training therapists is I've been doing supervision for the last 7 years, and because we have had our program grow so much in the last 5 years, we went from 5 to almost 20 therapists. I had to train a lot of people really fast, and so trying to find an efficient way to share this really important information has been really important to me. And I really think that we have found a great modality or training program in combining the ARC model and trust-based relational intervention. And before I get started, I just want to ask a little question. If you don't mind answering one of my poll questions, I have it off here to the right. I'm going to set it up here. So I only had 5 options that I could provide you guys. So I know there are a lot of other issues that you might be running into in terms of challenges in helping adoptive families. But if you could pick one of the 5 and let me know what you're faced with, and I'll let that question go for a little bit. All right. This is just a picture of the staff in my program, in the Adoption Preservation Program. This little person right here is me, and I'm going to point out Sean, who's been in the program for 12 years, and Jeff, who was an intern in the Adoption Preservation Program, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. So we're the longest term members, but all the rest of these guys are sort of in the last 5 years and have been victims of my many training experiments. All right, I'm going to close that. Oops, I didn't launch the question. Sorry. All right, so the question is launched. Go ahead and make your selection, and then I'll close it. But I'll just keep talking while you guys are selecting. So what we're going to talk about today is the attachment, self-regulation, and competency model combined with trust-based relational intervention. and how excited I am about putting these two together. Now, TBRI, or Trust Based Relational Intervention, is a therapeutic parenting model. So it's really for the parents, but it's got all these wonderful techniques, and they present it using videos and really cool programs that just make it really palatable for parents to take it in and understand it and then continue to learn it. And then, of course, the ARC model, which hopefully a lot of you guys have already been trained in. I'm actually going to ask that in another poll. So I'm going to close the questionnaire poll and kind of go through this a little bit. What we find out? Well, 38% of us are struggling with childhood trauma and mental illness, and 29% shared that they are struggling with child behavioral problems. 19% consider parents with old school parenting styles a big challenge, or the biggest challenge that they're dealing with. 10% parents with their own mental health issues, and then 5% sibling issues. So thanks for answering that poll. Kind of validates. Now I'm going to hide it. Okay, back to the training. We are combining two really great therapeutic modalities, but one is a therapeutic parenting model and the other one is for therapy. So a little bit different in their focus. And what these two together provide is an evidence-informed framework for understanding the client issues, the family issues, family dynamics. We really focus a lot on parents' mindfulness, providing concrete parenting techniques. Of course, that's really a frustration for all of us. You go to a training and then you get all this theory and you don't have any tools to walk away with. Well, the ARC model has great tools, and so does TBRI. Lots and lots and lots of evidence-based. So they've been researching these techniques and come away with the facts that these things work. So I feel very confident when I talk to parents about this framework. And we've shown through a little research project that we did that these two together actually significantly improve emotional connection of adoptive parents to their children. And hopefully you will agree with me that that is really important in permanency, which is, as a nation, we're really trying to work towards. All right. Well, this slide just talks about our program a little bit. I just wanted to share kind of what the Adoption Preservation Program at the Baby Fold does. We do in-home intensive family and individual therapy and in-home intensive parent modeling, and that means that the therapists go out to the homes and they will spend, anywhere from 30 minutes to 3 hours, or sometimes 6 hours, with a family, just depending on what they're doing, and on a weekly basis. It's supposed to be an intensive program. So they're visiting the families every week, they're talking to them on the phone in between, they're emailing in between, they're connecting, they're supporting. We have support groups for both the parents and the kids. We do cover a 22-county area, so that's always a challenge of trying to find a location that everybody can attend. We have psychoeducation classes. I just did one on Friday. We had a trust-based relational intervention class for 60 people. It went really well. We had probably half parents and half professionals in the central Illinois area, so it was a lot of fun and very exciting. We do case management in our program, so they're really comprehensive in terms of how they support the families. They actually go into the schools, they'll do a behavioral assessment, they'll go to the psychiatric appointments, they advocate for psychological assessments if they need that, they connect them with resources in the community. We do have some respite funds for the families that adopted through DCFS, or Illinois Department of Children and Family Services. We have some emergency funds for, those odd emergencies that come around that might, entail, some things like putting locks on the doors for, medicine cabinets, stuff like that. Camp Take a Break, which is a really special program that we have here in Central Illinois for our families that have adopted. It's a sleepaway camp where the kids can be dropped off at 7 o'clock in the evening and picked up on Friday, and then picked up at noon on Sunday. So that's 2 nights and a whole day of good respite, and the parents love this program, and there's always a waiting list to get in, and we can serve about 15 kids on a weekend, and we have them once a month or a little bit more than that throughout the school year. Some of our interventions that we use, of course, the ARC model, just talked about that. TheraPlay, we've been trained in TheraPlay. When I first started in the program, I don't know, 12 years ago, that was one of the trainings that I had to go to up in Chicago, and it was wonderful. Every therapist has to be trained in that if you're in an adoption preservation program in the state of Illinois. Trauma-focused CBT, it's a good standard evidence-based treatment. EMDR, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. We recently had Deb Wesselman come to our agency last year and teach us all her integrative attachment EMDR techniques. And that was a lot of fun. Attachment-focused family therapy, of course, by Dan Hughes. He's wonderful. Parent-child interaction therapy for the little ones, although we learn a lot through that training for the older ones too. And then, of course, Trust Based Relational Intervention, and we've got other ones too, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how eclectic we are. But, you know, when you look at all of these models and therapeutic techniques, I think that if you're familiar with them, you'll agree with me that the ARC model kind of incorporates all of the most important pieces of these different techniques, really talking about getting that family piece in place. So the ARC model, we got involved with that about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. We've actually adopted it across the entire agency as our model for treatment, and even in our school, you know, they've used that model and mapped their interventions along the pyramid of the ARC model. And our Healthy Start program for little kids, again, use that same model. You know, even though the kids may not have specific traumas, we can teach parents about how important it is to have a healthy attachment, how to teach kids how to develop their feelings vocabulary and their affect management, and, you know, help them use their problem-solving abilities. So it really has been universal across the agency. And then about 5 years ago, or maybe 4 years ago, when did we do this? Sorry. Maybe 4 years ago, we got involved in a research project with Northwestern University out of Chicago and the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services, along with Margaret Blaustein. She came and actually presented ARC to representatives of 10 child welfare agencies across the state of Illinois. Most of the agencies were doing foster care, but our particular representatives, myself, our clinical director, and one of my staff who didn't go to the training, but he actually implemented the ARC model with one of our families. We were in the adoption pres program, so we were a little bit different, and it made it for a very interesting experience. But we felt it was really important to participate in this research because we had already started using it and saw the benefits of it. So for a whole year, we would meet by phone with Margaret or representatives of Northwestern University to talk about ARC and the implementation of ARC on our individual families. And each agency would present on their cases, and we would kind of brainstorm how to implement ARC with those families. And we learned a lot. It was a really great experience. I have another question. I would like to know how many of you guys have already had training in the model? And I have launched it this time, so go ahead and say yes or no if you don't mind. Oh, look at you guys are so quick. All right. I'm going to give it a couple more seconds, but keeps going back and forth between 29% yes and 75% no, and then flipping back and forth. So it looks like a lot of you have not. So I'm going to close this poll, and I am going to talk about the ARC model a little bit. I'm just going to give you a little sales pitch here, so hopefully you'll get excited about it. Now, the ARC model is a therapeutic model, and it is a trauma therapy model. And if you look at my diagram here, which is, you know, basically Margaret and the rest of them's diagram, this is phase 1 down here. So trauma treatment is done in 2 phases in the ARC model, and you have to start with the attachment Okay, so this is the pyramid, and the base of the pyramid is caregiver affect management, attunement, consistent caregiver response, and then routines and rituals. Caregiver affect management is key. It's very important. Those parents or whoever it is that's caring for that child needs to have their emotions under management. Not that they can't have emotions, but they have to be mindful of them and aware of what they bring to the relationship with the child, or that experience that they're having with the child. It doesn't matter whether the caregiver is the parent, the therapist, the teacher, it's whoever is caring for that child. So I like how they've put caregiver affect management. It could be a foster parent, it could be a babysitter, it doesn't matter. It's whoever's caring for that child, because they can have a huge impact on that child's ability to function. So we've got caregiver affect management, and then attunement. And attunement is really that connection with the child, the ability to understand where that child's coming from, their history, their ability to read that child in terms of what's going on. Is that child tired? Is that child cranky? Is that child, do they need to eat? Are they having sensory issues right now? So are they feeling loved? Are they feeling distant? So that attunement, or that ability to understand where that child's from and then help the child, is really important. And then you've got caregiver consistency, or consistent caregiver response, when the child's misbehaving, or it doesn't matter really if they're misbehaving or not, just a consistent caregiver response in general. Is the caregiver presenting a personality that makes sense, that they kind of know what that person is going to do next based on their experience with that person? Is that person calm and supportive and kind and regulated? And are their responses, in other words, their parenting techniques, consistent? Are they using the same thing over and over again, so that the child kind of knows, if I do this, this happens. If I do this, this happens. So you'll find that in just about most every good parenting program right now. So a lot of our parents really understand consistent caregiver response and can do a little assessment on themselves for you already. And then you've got routines and rituals. Routines, of course, are those day-to-day things that you got to do. Get up, go to bed, eat dinner, all those things, those regular, go to school, come home from school, do your homework, all those things that you do routinely. And it talks, of course, the ARC model talks about how important it is to have a routine and, kind of do things at the similar times of the day and kind of how you do it, so that the child's stress level is reduced. And then the rituals, that's the oxytocin builders of the day. Those are the times in which the child feels enriched and loved and nourished and cared for. So it's the sing-song things that you do, and the kiss on the head that you do before they go to bed, or the snuggles. The rituals, my home is, silly behavior, a relaxed hug, a tap on the head, a tickle. Those are just things that we do, and the kids know it and they expect it. And sometimes I chase them out the door when they go to school, and they run out laughing. So it's just fun things that you do to make their lives enjoyable. And then this next row, this is about the child's development of skills in terms of their feelings. And the first one, of course, is feelings identification. And I want to point out that, we've had kids that know 20 different feelings words, but they actually don't know what those feelings words mean. So it's an interesting block. You don't just need to teach the child words, but also the application of the words, making sure that they are properly identifying their feelings and that it makes sense. And then affect modulation, I love how they have described this. It's not just affect management, it's affect modulation, and that is the ability to bring your energy levels up, down, your different feelings, more intense or less intense, depending on what you need for that situation. So, thinking about going to bed, what kind of energy level do you want to have? Well, I want to be kind of relaxed, and I want to, maybe snuggle with my mom and do something calming. If the child is able to think about that and make those choices, they're using their affect modulation skills. If a child is in school and they're getting bored and they're kind of spacing out, or maybe they're a little bit dissociative and need to bring up their energy level so that they can listen better. Maybe they have some sort of sensory tool in their desk that they can use and bring their energy level up. So that's modulation. It's assessing where you're at with your emotions, the level of your emotions, and the situation that you're in, and then modulating that so that it's more appropriate to what you need to do. So it's a little more than just relaxation skills, which it could turn into if we're kind of sloppy therapists. So there's a little more depth to it. And then of course feelings expression. This block is an interesting one because they learn how to identify their feelings, and then they have to share them with their family in a healthy way. And if we've got kids that have been repressing feelings or not talking about their feelings for a long time, and they're just learning, it doesn't always come out right in the beginning when they're just starting to practice. So feelings expression can be quite the challenge for the parents' caregiver affect management. So we always have to warn parents that as the children begin to develop these skills, they're going to start using them, and they're probably not going to use them quite the way they want to hear them. And so it actually can be, for the parents, a tough time, and they consider it an increase in behavior. Sometimes our parents are more willing to be hit than to be told, I hate you, or you're awful, or a lot of worse things that I won't say on the webinar. But just think about that. And I like this model because I can have that conversation in the beginning of therapy. As we sit down and take a look at the model, I can talk about the progression of the child's skills and what they might face in these different areas, and kind of give them a heads up so that they're pre-warned that there'll be a phase of difficulty as the child begins to find their voice. And then we can, after these things are in place, hopefully, the child can actually start using their executive functioning skills. And this is where we learn problem solving. We're teaching the kids problem solving skills. It's so funny how so many of the parents will call me up and say, I just need you to work with my child. They make really poor decisions. Can you do, individual therapy with them and fix them? I know they don't actually say, can you fix them? But you know what I mean? It has that sense to it. And I have to explain, well, yeah, we're going to get there. We're going to get to improving their problem solving skills. But first, we have to do a lot more. We have this whole bottom of the pyramid that we have to address. And then next to executive functioning and developing their problem-solving skills, we've got identity and sense of self. And I know that a lot of you guys are probably already using narrative therapy, but that's just pretty much what we're doing. We're really looking at where they came from, where these emotions come from, and where they're headed. Who they are, who they have in their life now, who did they have in their life before, who do they miss, really getting them to fall in love with themselves and see themselves as special and precious as a person and really cool. So this is phase one. So this is the preparation stuff. And honestly, when we're talking about identity and sense of self and relational trauma, we might be starting on their trauma integration already when we're working on their narrative. So even though it's in phase one, I want to just recognize right now that we're stepping into trauma integration as we're doing the identity work or the narrative. And if we're using like EMDR integration work and starting to do some attachment therapy using EMDR, that also is stepping into that realm right there of trauma integration. But getting these things in place, particularly the attachment piece of it in place, is so core. And I'm sure, if you are trained in trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, that's really what they're doing too. And that you're really trying to get that support system in place so that the child can feel emotionally safe enough to work towards their trauma integration. All right, let's see. Oh, and I pretty much just talked about that. Really, TFCBT works very well in the ARC model, and a lot of the other therapies that we're doing work well. They don't fight with the ARC model. It blends well, and so does TBRI. So if you're not using the ARC model, I still think you should, but if you're not using it already and you're doing trauma-focused CBT, I want you to realize that what I'm going to say about trust-based relational intervention applies really well to the other models that you're using, because it's really good stuff and it's evidence-informed. All right, so I'm going to go back to the research that we did with Northwestern and Margaret Blaustein and DCFS. They haven't written anything up yet to be published, but they were really nice. I emailed them a couple weeks ago and asked if they would mind sharing some of their data, and they actually sent it to me, knowing that I was going to put it in this. So hopefully they're okay with what I say here. But when I looked at the research, the therapists across the state were doing really well at reducing kids' problematic behaviors. You know, the anxiety and the symptoms of trauma were going down, and it looked like it was a significant change. So, you know, we're doing good, which is awesome, but I noticed that in the attachment realm, there didn't seem to be a change for the kids across the state. And, you know, when I looked at what we did with the particular case that we used the ARC model with in this study, we saw huge improvements in the attachment. And I, you know, thought about, you know, why is that? Why did we see such a difference? And I really think it's because the therapist that was working with the family was seriously attending to the attachment stuff. He was doing theraplay activities with the parents and the child, and you know, using the trust-based relational intervention techniques already, even before he got the formal training in it. We had all already been introduced to TBRI and we're already implementing it. So I really think that this is evidence, you know, the fact that our case had such an impact on that family. I really think that it is the combination of the ARC model and TBRI together. So, and we actually did some research on it and came up with that result. So I did talk a little bit already about how key parent affect management is to the progress of the child. And I was just kind of wondering, this might be a little bit of an obvious question, but I want to see if you guys agree or disagree with what I'm saying here. So I'm asking this question, and the question is, in your work, do you see children failing to attach to their adoptive parents due to the lack of attunement or affect management of the parent with the child? So I'm going to launch this question and see if you don't mind. We got 100% yes so far. I'll leave it for a little bit. Okay. Somebody said no. Some people are saying no. Okay. Thank you for, you know, giving me your perspective on this. I'm going to close it now. Okay, so 95% said yes, they do see that as being critical, and 5% said no. And I'm not actually surprised by that, because not everybody thinks the same way. And, you know, I think I even heard Bessel van der Kolk say the other day that it didn't matter whether or not his clients liked him or not, because he could still help them using EMDR. So, you know, connection and attachment, you know, may not be always necessary, but I think that the research that Margaret Blaustein and the other gang out in Boston did on the families that they worked with, I think in general it's a truism that we need to follow, and 95% of you are feeling similar to that, so I'm not totally off base here. So what might be some of the issues? Well, the parents may be having trouble with their own affect regulation. The child might be rejecting his or her parent, and wow, that's so painful for them. The parent may lack understanding of the reasons behind the child's behavior, so they don't quite get their kid, and the child might have developmental delays or sensory issues. And here's another one, the child actually might be presenting a danger to others in the home. And what a conflicting feeling to see, one of your kids attacking another one of your children, or having that child attack you. So, I have a lot of empathy for parents that are struggling. It can be so rough. I used to work in the residential treatment center, so I kind of remember trying to deal with kids that, 1 minute they're attacking me, and the next minute I'm supposed to be the therapist. I'm like, I just restrained you 20 minutes ago, and oh, wow, I have to calm down. So, well, obviously, Bessel van der Kolk is one of my heroes, and I just pulled this from one of his webinars. He said that he personally thought that 75% of us have trauma, some sort of trauma, physical, emotional, single incident, adoptive trauma, loss, etc. We'll go to a little more specific research on this. I don't know if you guys have heard of the ACEs study. I think the ACEs study is just fantastic. It's a great study to train staff on, helping them kind of identify maybe traumas that they've had. But the ACE study, they've studied adverse trauma or adverse childhood experiences in 17,000 patients. And this was done by Kaiser and the Center for Disease Control. It's a study that's still going on. Dr. Anda and Dr. Filiti are still doing these studies, and it's just continuing. Other cities around the country are replicating this information, and what it's showing is that there is staggering proof that adverse childhood experiences are affecting the health, social and economic health, I guess, of adults. So they're studying adults, and they're saying that all these adverse childhood experiences are directly connected or indirectly connected. I don't know. The level of stress these families or these people have experienced, it's affecting their ability to function day to day. It's affecting their ability to be healthy. Diabetes, heart attacks, all these things are all these different health issues are connected to adverse childhood experiences. And they just realized how many people have had them. So about 2/3 of the individuals, the 17,000 studied, had at least one of these experiences. So physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect. So I just want you to be thinking about relational trauma as we're talking. Mother treated violently, household substance abuse, household mental illness, which, could indicate some neglect, parent separation or divorce, an incarcerated household member, some loss of that parent, being in their lives. And this is interesting. 87% of the individuals who reported one ACE reported at least one additional ACE. Yeah. And I'm just going to run through these stats and just kind of round them as I talk. The prevalence of emotional abuse was about 10%, physical abuse was 28%, sexual abuse 1%, emotional neglect almost 15%, physical neglect almost 10%, mother treated violently almost 13%, household substance abuse almost 27%, household mental illness almost 20%, parent separation and divorce 23%, incarcerated household member 5%. So, that's a lot of relational trauma that these people are dealing with. It's just a really good study to help you realize how prevalent trauma is out there, and we're talking about helping parents work on their affect management. It's really important to ask them the questions or address that with them to help them see. Well, this brings me to our research with TBRI or Texas Christian. We were working on the ARC model, so we're working with our families using the ARC model and kind of struggling with the affect management piece with the parents as well as the attunement. A lot of the staff are saying, I just don't know how to improve attunement. We can do theraplay, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the parents are going to be able to attune. And it's an interesting idea. You really have to model it to show it, and even then the parents think they're doing it, but yet they're slightly dissociated or just not quite connected, or they feel overwhelmed, and so we were struggling a little bit, not with every case. A lot of the cases it was just going great, but for particular cases we would just run into these roadblocks. And so it was really fortuitous when I got an offer from DCFS to take advantage of a scholarship to go to Texas Christian University for this TBRI training. I think it was offered to Susan Smith from the Donaldson Institute, and she was there doing a training for us, and she's like, I don't want to, I can't go, do you want this? And DCFS just our contract monitor turned around and said, hey Kathleen, you want to go? And I'm like, yes. Some of our families had already discovered TBRI, and so I loosely understood it. One of my therapist staff had told me about it, and she's like, there's these great videos, and it really helps the parents, and it's a therapeutic parenting. So I kind of knew what it was, but not really. So I said yes, because I'm pretty game for a lot of things. I love to explore and learn and do different things. So I said yes, and took a trip to Texas. But before I took a trip to Texas, I had a lot of work to do. So with this scholarship, I had 2 months of pre-training, which included a lot of DVDs, a lot of reading of research material, doing some homework and turning that into TCU. I had to send in a urine sample because they were doing neuroscreens on all the adults that were attending. They were doing a research study on the adults, so that was interesting. So I had to actually agree to that. I also had an adult attachment interview with one of the staff by phone, which is a little nerve-wracking to have somebody evaluate whether or not you have a healthy attachment style or not. It was a great experience. And then I got to go to Texas, and I spent 5 days down there, and I learned about their 3 principles, and I'll go over those. I learned about attachment therapy, or theory, and of course I had already learned about attachment therapy, or I keep saying that, sorry, theory in school, but it was a great refresher. I learned about mindfulness on a level that, I didn't really, I wasn't able to turn around and train somebody else in mindfulness, so that was great. I learned a lot about sensory integration issues and how to use information about sensory integration. I actually learned how to identify possible seizure disorders, which was a real surprise. I didn't think I was going to learn something like that, but I did. Dr. Purvis has actually developed a DVD that actually talks about it and shows seizures, and by the end of it, when I came back, I was able to work with a family by phone. I was just listening to the mom tell me about what she was seeing with her child, and I said, oh my gosh, I wonder. And we sent the child to a neurologist, and sure enough, that kid had a major seizure disorder. He was functioning at like a 19-month-old, and he was maybe 4 or 5 years old, and after starting his seizure medication, within 6 months, he was age appropriate. It was so exciting to see, and I felt so good about it, and I just want to share this to the world, because this isn't something that you usually learn as a therapist, but I did. And at that 5-day training, I got to sit with Dr. Wright, who is from Florida. She was the speaker or the trainer for the section on neurodevelopment, the effects of trauma on the brain, and neurochemistry. And I got to actually kind of sit in or watch her look at everybody's neurochemistry panels and evaluate them, and I got to share my own with her, and I was really thankful at the time that it was normal. All it showed was just a little heightened histamine, and that was because I'd had some allergies at the time that I had to do my urine sample, and they were gone at the point. And she's like, you're fine, you don't need any of these supplements that this company is trying to sell you. The company that did the neurochem panels had a whole list of things that I should be taking, but she's like, no. So it really showed me how important it was to have a physician or somebody who's educated in functional medicine take a look at those. Don't just do the neurochem panel and listen to the company that's trying to sell you a bill of goods. So be careful. But I learned a lot. It was very exciting. And then I got the results of my adult attachment inventory, and thank God I'm healed secure. A little dismissive, but not too bad. I have German history in my family, so they're a little stiff. But I have a great relationship with my husband, and at this point in my life, I am healed secure. So, before I go on, so I was so excited after this training. I went up to Dr. Cross and I said, Dr. Cross, I think you should come to Illinois. And about a year later, he did. He came to Illinois, and we got together and shared more information about TBRI with the agency, and talked about the benefits of it and how it can really help parents. And the Residential Treatment Center at the Baby Fold and my program got together with TCU, and we did a research study because we implemented TBRI. And they actually were so wonderful. They took 12 of us and brought us down to Texas. See, that's us right there. And we did the same thing, same training, only this time we became educators of TBRI. So we went to Texas, we did our homework, we did our training, and then we came back and implemented TBRI on a mass scale. And we were able to show that, that we could improve the parents' connection to their kids in a significant way using the TBRI alongside of the ARC model that we're already using. So all those therapeutic techniques we were using as we went along, but we added the TBRI to it. And this is a link to the research that we did, and if you can find that on TCU's website. Actually, they have it's going to be published by Child Welfare League of America, but at this point you can find it on the TBRI website. So what is TBRI? Well, it's not rocket science. It's like all the stuff that you knew already, but packaged in this wonderful set of DVDs or these wonderful trainings that we do. The staff here at the Baby Fold are trained to do 4-day trainings, 4 days long, and we can give CEUs for these trainings. The first day is an overview. The second day is on connection, where we're teaching parents to, and caseworkers and whoever else comes, the importance of building healthy, trusting relationships between children and their parents. We talk about attachment. We talk about mindfulness. We teach how to give and we teach kids how to give and receive nurture, all the important tools of connection. And then the next day is empowerment, meeting the child's needs. We talk about sensory integration issues. We talk about sensory input every 2 hours, food every 2 hours, water every 2 hours. We talk about the need for emotional safety in the environment, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that means. Correction is the last day. So we have an overview and then 3 days: connection, empowerment, and correction. Correction is more talking about proactive strategies to keep the child from having behaviors. You want to teach the child success, social skills and self-regulation to be successful. And then we also teach the parents how to respond if they're struggling. And I'm going to give you more information on that as we go along here. But what did TBRI bring to the ARC model that we didn't even know that we needed? And that was the piece of the physiology. Really, it's a holistic assessment of the child, not just of the attachment and their regulation abilities and their competencies, their ability to problem solve and have an idea about themselves. It added the physiology piece. And and if you're using trauma-focused CBT, you realize that isn't always enough. You've got to look at the other things. You got to look at the fact, maybe the child has a developmental delay. Do they have health issues? Do they have issues with their family dynamics that are really complex? Parents with their own trauma. Maybe the child is being aggressive with the other kids in the home, or maybe they're being sexually reactive, and it's really impacting the parent's ability to be supportive. The little more detail in taking a look at the child's physiology. I already mentioned the seizure disorders, but you've got the ARND, or fetal alcohol syndrome and fetal affect, whatever you want to call it today. Autism spectrum disorders, sensory integration disorders, brain development issues, all the reduced functioning, the slowed of the processing speeds, possible seizure disorders, severe mental illness. You know, you might have a child that's developing bipolar or schizophrenia. Of course, we know about these things already, but you know, it puts it in a holistic framework, and really encourages a full look at the child. So they might have medical issues such as untreated strep, which can really significantly impact behavior in some kids. You might have medication side effects. You know, we have research coming out recently showing that some of the meds that we're giving kids actually reduces their empathy. Same thing with the parents. Some of the medications for depression reduces their ability to be empathetic. So, you know, you're trying to develop attachment and connection, and they're taking these meds, and it's impacting it. The child might have allergies, they might be kind of irritable, they might be struggling because of those. We've seen kids with allergies have tantrums during, have an increase in tantrums and hospitalizations during hay fever season. They might have food sensitivities, gut issues, they might have diminished ability to process their foods because of, what their development. So, trying to develop a healthy neurochemistry might be a little difficult if the child has gut issues. I'm going to go a little bit more into each of the principles just to help you understand a little bit more. Just going to go deeper and deeper as we're talking. Empowerment principles, when we talk about those, we're really talking about meeting physical needs, their internal needs, their body needs, their hydration, their food, their sensory input, and encouraging parents to meet those needs on a schedule of every 2 hours, or really just, assessing, do they need something? Now, are they hungry? Is that why they're tantruming? Did they not sleep well? So this is just, glossing over, but we spent an entire day talking about this kind of stuff. And then ecological strategies, that's what you do in the environment to support the child. And so you have to have this intense attunement to the child and understand their needs and their sensory issues in order to create an emotionally safe ecological environment for the child. So, I'm going to use carpet squares as a really good example because it can be good or bad for a child, just depending. So a carpet square, you might see those in schools, where the kid sits on it, it kind of creates a little boundary, and that's a really good thing. It might just, give just enough information to the child, like, okay, I'm supposed to stay on my carpet square, and I'm good here, and it's a really good tool. Or you might have a child with a sensory issue, and those carpet squares are just driving them crazy because they're scratchy and itchy and horrible. And so when we attune into a child and we look at, what are their needs physiologically, we might, really know the kid and go, oh, they have a sensory issue. Carpet square is not a good idea. How about a piece of cloth or a piece of paper? Helping the teacher or whoever it is that's using that carpet square think outside the box. Think outside that carpet square. What else can you use? And then headphones is another example of an ecological strategy. You've got a child, maybe they've got autism spectrum disorder or sensory integration disorder, and loud noises are really tough for them. So, maybe during transition time they put headphones on, or maybe when they're doing their homework they wear headphones to help them block out sound. Or maybe you've got a child that relaxes really well with music, and so you pop those headphones on with their favorite music that's calming. So basically using what is in their environment to help them be as successful as possible. So spend a whole day on empowering principles, and we go really deep, and parents love that day. Honestly, just love it. The connecting principles, that is teaching parents to assess their kids for their connection with their child's ability to connect at that point in time. It teaches specific skills to use to engage their child, such as close proximity. In other words, I'm not supposed to yell at my kid from the bottom of the stairs. I'm supposed to go all the way up to the top and talk to her face to face with a calm look on my face and a good tone. Giving the child full attention. How many parents do you know will be working on their cell phone and texting or whatever, or just talking to somebody and not really giving their child full attention, just sort of batting them away. So we teach how important it is to put the phone down, turn the computer off, look at your child in the face, and really give full attention. Really paying attention to your facial expressions, making sure that you have a kind, sincere, hopefully playful facial expression with your child or whoever you're working with. Tone of voice is big. We work on that quite a bit. Making sure that it's playful at appropriate times, firm, maybe a little bit louder at certain times, softer at other times. Matching body language is important. These are all therapeutic skills. Like I said, this is not rocket science. This is really very sensible stuff, but it's packaged really well and helps parents understand. Again, position. Are you positioning yourself in an engaging way? Are you facing the child? Are you, at a 45-degree angle? Are you, at the same height? So we talk a lot about, not lording over kids with their hands on your waist and staring at them with a horrible look on your face, but really just kind of popping down on their eye level and matching them up. And then also there's the mindful questions, to connect. What am I feeling? What do I bring to this situation? What is the child feeling? What are they thinking about me? Are we connecting? Is this working, what I'm doing? And then what's in the environment that influences our ability to connect? Is it too noisy? Do we need to go in the other room? And, just all sorts of really good stuff. Correcting principles, people want to go to this and not go to any of the other classes, and we don't let them do that. We say you have to go to the other ones because correcting doesn't work unless you have a connection with the child, and that is key. So we have to help them understand how to be mindful before we hit the correcting principle class. So we never let them come to just the correcting class. But we hit it really hard, as we're talking about correcting, the importance to connect and empower. In the first half of the correcting principle day, we talk about proactive strategies and we teach skills. Telling the parents to teach their skills during calm alert times and showing videos of what that means. What does it look like when a child is calm and alert and really using their prefrontal cortex? And then talking about engaging the child in these social skill activities using playful activities. So a lot of theraplay incorporated in here. And if you're wondering why I'm incorporating theraplay, because that's another therapeutic modality, Dr. Purvis actually went to the Theraplay Institute, got trained in it, and was given permission to use theraplay in TBRI. So I love TBRI, I love theraplay, so it was a really good match. And so during nurture groups, we play games and we teach different social skills, and that helps kids learn because they're calm and alert during these times, hopefully. So we're trying to teach kids skills proactively, and I'm going to show you some examples of that later on in the presentation so that you have a better idea. And then the last half of the day is responsive strategies, and I think one of the things that you need to realize TBRI brings to parents is, most of them know how to do a timeout, but, how do you do a time in? How do you read the child well enough to know whether or not you need to do a time in? Can you do it at a lower level? Can you do it at a point in which can you do an intervention that is less, more of a coach and less of a warden, like I've got on my screen here? So they use the ideal response. They want you to respond to the misbehaviors, the escalating behaviors immediately, responding within seconds. They want you to be direct, engage the child directly. Don't, like I said, scream from the bottom of your stairwell. Can you tell I used to do this? Don't scream from the bottom of your stairwell if you want your child to, do something different or do a redo or whatever. Go upstairs, be right with them, be face-to-face, have a calm look on your face. That's direct. And then there's efficient, only using the level of response essential for addressing the challenge. If you can be playful, you're supposed to just do that. Don't, what's Dr. Purvis? She says, don't kill a gnat with an elephant gun? Yeah, that's what she says. So use the least amount of force to change behavior, and you really want your interventions to be action-based. You want them to redo the behavior. So we're really trying to use the body memory to help the child learn what to do next. And of course, efficiency. E is for efficiency, use the lowest level possible. But what if it starts to escalate? Well, this is where TBRI is really helpful because Dr. Purvis and Dr. Cross have created these videos actually showing parents what it looks like when a child's eyes are flipping back and forth, when their heart rate's up, and they show how Dr. Purvis will put her hand on the child's chest now of course they're probably not violent at that point, but to check their heart rate and their breathing and to develop that connection and bring the kids down to a point in which they can talk to her. So it shows her being mindful, it shows her schooling her features. She actually has videos of her with kids that are escalated and kind of cussing at her, even just really snarky, and having her calm them down, focus them, having them follow her and to another place where they can talk calmly about it. And then and running through a reductions of children having poor behavior or inefficient behavior, just upset behavior, and calming them down and using the skills that she teaches in the class. And parents find that very helpful because it's not just somebody talking to them about it at a time in which everything's calm, but it shows it in the moment. So parents learn to make decisions based on their assessments of the child's needs in the moment. So it really breaks it down. Oh, so what do we do when parents struggle? Well, we have to, use our assessments beyond the child. Parents might have past trauma. There might be current trauma going on with the child. The parent might be afraid. Parent might not be understanding. They might be depressed. They might be overwhelmed. They might be too busy. They might need to slow down. And these are things that we go through through the program and the trainings with the parents. So really helping them understand their own attachment style. Dr. Purvis really recommends that we do AAIs with the parents. I recommend that if you're going to do an attachment assessment, Therapy Institute talked about this too when we went for training there. Making sure that you do this on the front end and not wait until we've been spinning our wheels for a while and things aren't going well, and then suddenly you go, oh, maybe I need to attend to this. It's not a good idea because it makes the parents feel bad. It's better to ask them right on the front end, and you can use that ARC model and talk about affect management and attunement, and then just say, what sets us up to be successful is having a healthy attachment style. How are you parented? How do you have skills, or do you think you struggle in some areas? And then you can really go into it. And we've developed an attachment assessment that we can use with our families on the front end, and we've found that to be very useful. And as parents learn this, it's really difficult to implement all of these different, assessment techniques and interventions, and to kind of keep their eye on all the balls in the air. So we found that many parents benefit from having support groups in which they can go and problem solve and talk with other parents who are doing similar interventions. So I really recommend that if you incorporate TBRI into your program, please do support groups. And I want to talk about therapist issue. I only have a few minutes left, so let me run through this really quick. You might have a new untrained therapist. They may not be aware of their own attachment style. They might be slightly dismissive. There is an unusual number of amount of caseworkers, teachers, therapists with dismissive styles. So really taking a look at, do you have a therapist that is choosing CBT with the child individually instead of doing family therapy, which is really what they should be doing. So if you've got, that might just be fear and inexperience, but there might be some attachment issues there. So it's really important for therapists to be exploring this for themselves, and they may need to work on their own attachment issues. It can be toxic if a therapist has, or they might be overwhelmed and entangled. So it could be either way. So we really encourage the therapists to work on this and come to supervision and work through their issues if they're having struggles with different parents. We start by identifying healthy therapists. I always, kind of have this conversation with people that I'm interviewing and asking them to self-select out if they have unresolved trauma, because this program, as you're working with these families, is going to trigger just about everything that they've got. So we want to make sure that they're as healthy as they can be, and they have good healthy habits, like running or exercise or some sort, or just really good mindfulness habits. So and then we also talk about the need to reach out and have our own little TBRI groups. And so we do have at least twice a month meetings in which we sit down and talk about techniques and just the therapy in general. Oh, I'm going to skip this slide. It's kind of already talked about it anyways. Individual therapy for parents might be important to help them work through stuff. Same thing for, I'm just going to start talking techniques here as I have a couple minutes left. Mindfulness is really important. Here's a nice little tool for you that's online. And then Dan Siegel has a book called The Mindful Brain. Really helps parents think about mindfulness. Yoga, Tai Chi. When I went down to the last Texas training, Dr. Cross actually did I don't know, 20 minutes of Tai Chi with us, and that was a lot of fun. When I came back, I bought a couple of videos for yoga and Tai Chi because I thought they were useful. The importance of caregiver response. We're striving for emotional safety. Proactive strategies are more successful. Children don't learn from punishment. So this is a theme that we talk about with our families. We develop family rules. Dr. Purvis has videos of families doing that. We work with the families on total voice control, and we really specifically do tone, volume, and cadence. And now I'm talking really fast, and that's kind of overwhelming for some people. So really teaching parents to slow it down and watch. Have like a frowny face sometimes, and if it's your own experiences, it makes it a little easier. Exploring rituals, helping for implementing some routines and that are fun and help the children. Here's a little video of feeding, which is giving and receiving care, which is a huge one for us. Band-Aid rituals. It's a theraplay activity that Dr. Purvis has glommed onto quite a bit, and we're basically teaching the child to receive care, have a boo-boo, and you put a Band-Aid on it for them, and then they give care, and the parent might, or the caregiver might say, I have a boo-boo on my heart, somebody hurt my feelings yesterday, and so the child will put a Band-Aid on their shirt. So it's a really good conversation. I Love You Rituals by Becky Bailey, I recommend that. Teaching social skills is huge. Let's stick together, tie a loose string between the caregiver and the child, a loose string, and then the child is supposed to take care of that string and honor that string, not pull on it. So but it's really important for kids to stick with their caregivers. A lot of our kids like to run away, and so a little string and practice really helps. Playing games can increase connection at the same time the lesson is being taught. Let me give you some examples of that. Right way, wrong way. So we've got puppets going here, and they're practicing, going to bed the wrong way with a snarky attitude, and then doing it the right way with the right attitude, and getting a kiss and lots of hugs, and the kids having fun, and the mom's having fun, or the whoever's working with them's having fun, and it's just a great way to practice a behavior. And then of course we just have plain fun because we want to have lots and lots of good neurochemistry going. Here's a picture of some silly string activities. I like this activity before I let you guys go. Can I please shoot you? asking permission and showing respect using squirt guns and Nerf guns is really a fun way to practice this skill. So the child learns to respect you, not to hit you in the face. You know, you have to set this up. You have to teach them, okay, we don't shoot each other in the face, and we ask first, and we ask, can I shoot you? And so the child says, can I shoot you, please? And then you can say, sure, you can shoot me on my left arm, and then they shoot you on your left arm, and you laugh, and you have fun. And this works for older kids too. So, you know, the nice thing about TheraPlay and all these activities that TBRI shares is that they don't just use them with little kids, they use them all the way up to 18 and older. So you can do the same practice of respect and care activities, laughing and having fun with older kids. And you can teach them to accept no. So, you know, after a little bit, after they practice shooting each other and shooting you, and you say yes, and they say yes, you have to shoot them back, so you have to be a part of it. They have to be willing to let you shoot them. Then you practice saying no. And they, you know, because they're having fun, they learn to accept no. So this is just examples of the different kinds of fun activities TBRI can bring to your therapy. I hope that you try it out, take a look at it. I've got a few slides here of some places you can find evidence-based practice information, some references here. This is the book that I was referring to, Treating Traumatic Stress in Children and Adolescents by Margaret Blaustein and Christine Kinneberg. This is the ARC book. I highly recommend it. You can go to the Trust Based Relational Intervention website to find out about their resources. Empowered to Connect, which is a religious group that uses a lot of Dr. Purvis's stuff, and they have great videos that you can watch of Dr. Purvis talking about lying and stealing, and you know, how do you understand those behaviors and what do you do about it. And then I've just got some of the books that I pulled from, ideas for you to check out. So if you have any feedback for me or any questions about this, I'm very excited about it. I'm always happy to talk about it. I'm always so sorry that 1 hour is not enough to teach TBRI, but hopefully I have sold it to you and I've sold the ARC model to you. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. All right, thanks. Bye.
Wow, Kathleen, thank you so much. That was incredible and so much information. I encourage all of you here within, give us a couple days, but you can go to the Harmony website at www.harmonyfamilycenter.org, and you will be able to, one, hear the recording of today's webinar, as well as see all of the information and the resources that Kathleen has shared. Thank you again, Kathleen. We ask that you please plan to join us at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, December 9th for the next ASAP post-conference webinar entitled Put Your Own Oxygen Mask On First, Care for Caregivers of Children Who Have Experienced Trauma,